Big breaking news into First Take. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Broncos are trading for Miami wide receiver Jaylen Waddle. So this trade package, Denver receives Waddle and the Dolphins' fourth-round pick in the 2026 draft. Miami gets the Broncos' first-round pick, which is 30th overall, along with their late third and fourth-round picks, 30th in each round in this year's draft. Dan Orlovsky back with us here on First Take. Dan, your reaction to this trade?
Absolutely love this for Denver. It was the really missing piece for their football team, specifically on offense, speed wide receiver. Bo Nix really entering a massive year, coming off of a really good year last year. So they have Cortland Sutton, who's a big-bodied receiver. And then they have some good players, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, Mims. Mims is a little bit of a specialty kind of guy. So they needed a real wide receiver, true wide receiver with speed. There's Jaylen Waddle. Okay, so I love that for Denver. I think Denver was a top 3 or 4 team in the AFC, even in this moment right now. They're very much so still in that mix. I think that's the team to beat in the division as well in the AFC West. Number 2, I love it for Miami. You got to admit who you are. You're very much so rebuilding. You need as many assets as possible under this new regime. Waddle's a really nice player. He's coming off of a season, even with the bad situations at quarterback, 64 catches, over 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. That was on the back of, I think, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 22 to 24. But Miami's looking towards the future, specifically with Malik Willis coming quarterback there. I love it for both parts, but this is a huge pickup for Denver.
It is a huge pickup, Dan, and I think that it legitimately elevates them potentially to the number 1 team in the AFC. Remember, they were in the AFC Championship game last year. We keep forgetting they had 68 sacks, 4 shy of an all-time record by the Chicago Bears in 1984-85. We keep forgetting that, okay? Their defense was legit. They got after the quarterback better than anybody in football. They lost an AFC Championship game 10-7 because Jarrett Stidham was your quarterback instead of Bo Nix, who had gotten hurt near the end of the Buffalo divisional playoff game right there. And so if Bo Nix is in the lineup, chances are Denver's in the Super Bowl instead of New England. We got to look at it from that standpoint. And that was before you got Waddle. So you've got Sutton, you've got Mims, you've got at the running back spot with Harvey and J.K. Dobbins and these cats. And I'm looking at all of these things and I'm saying to myself, okay, the team that really resonates with me, Dan Orlovsky, is Buffalo. You got DJ Moore, but he ain't Jaylen Waddle. I like Moore, but he ain't Waddle. Remember, Buffalo had a chance to get Waddle. If you're willing to give up the first-round pick, they're willing to give it up in 2027, okay? They're willing to give it up. Buffalo insists that it doesn't want to give up the pick in 2027, in 2026. They'd rather give it up in 2027. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You got Josh Allen there, and you got a chance to get Jaylen Waddle, and you miss out on that? This is a big deal to me because of that as well, because I see Buffalo's being one of those top teams. Obviously, Denver being another one of those top teams. And, you just played them in the postseason where you lost to them in overtime 33-30. And you had an opportunity to get them, and you were willing, and somehow, some way, Denver was able to work out a deal that Buffalo couldn't with the Miami Dolphins. That's what comes to my mind when I think about this particular move, Dan.
Okay, so that goes back a little bit to last year and a little bit this offseason. DJ Moore is going to be a good player. I think Buffalo wants to keep that pick for defensive help. I do understand where you're coming from, Stephen A. I don't disagree with putting Denver at the top. Obviously, we are just starting the NFL offseason, so there's moves to be made for teams in the draft and whatnot. You want to know the team that comes to mind for me off of this news, though, outside of the directly Dolphins and Broncos? The Patriots.
Listen.
Because if Waddle's going for the 1, and you said the 3 and 4 pick, Waddle,
yep.
What's A.J. Brown going to cost? Because if Jaylen Waddle, really nice player, I think we could all agree that A.J. Brown is a more dominant player. If Waddle went for a 1 and you're New England and you thought you were in the A.J. Brown conversation, now what does the very clear asking price of A.J. Brown going to be?
And New England clearly has to upgrade at the wide receiver spot. There is no doubt about that. They need some help.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around this because you both have pointed out Miami is in a rebuild. We know that. That's why they did the things that they did.
Miami's been in a rebuild for 25 years, but go ahead.
You're right about that. They've got 7 picks in the first 3 rounds of this year's draft. They can start building towards something. So when you're doing that, if you're telling us you're tanking to try to go get a top quarterback in next year's draft, Why don't you just roll with Quinn Ewers? I'm having a really hard time understanding the justification for $67.5 million for Malik Willis.
Yep.
The dead cap for Tua. Yes, I know it's a post-June 1 cut. You can spread it out over 2 years. Why make your financial situation that much more complicated when the easiest path here would have been just to go with what you had on the roster, because it probably would have ensured a pretty bad record regardless?
Yeah, so I think the question is fair. My answer would be players and coaches never tank. Front offices do. So I think players and coaches and certainly decision makers, they never take. They're incapable of it. They're not wired that way. The Malik Willis move made sense because we can all be honest that they have to rebuild the football team and the talent around it, while also wanting to be competent. You want to look like a competent, well-run organization. The comparison, I'm not trying to take shots here, but would be what the Jets look like this year.
Sure.
The Jets look like incompetency at many points. And so everyone's like, Aaron Glenn's a terrible coach. Aaron Glenn obviously is a good football coach. And so I think that's part of the Jets move too with Geno Smith. It's like we're trying to be a competent and competitive organization. And what happens if Malik Willis, even in a not great situation, goes and plays good? Then you don't have to address quarterback in 27 and/or 28 because you have an answer at the position. And if he struggles or if he doesn't perform up to the contract, your plan is going to kind of be what it was originally. You're going to address the position in 27. So I understand the point, but I do think new regimes want some form of success.
I feel you on that. I just think that, you know what, you go and get a quarterback and then you move their primary weapon. What does that say?
Sure.
You know, I mean, some things are just that simple. Like you're Malik Willis. Here you are. You've been waiting to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League for some time. You get $67 million. They invest in you. They say you're our guy moving forward. You're the starting quarterback for this team. And oh, by the way, a week later, we gonna get rid of your number one wide receiver. I mean, that's kind of hard to stomach.
Okay. So Stephen A. But we don't. We know receivers get very expensive once they produce. What happens if the Dolphins take that pick and they draft a player like a Mekhi Lemon or a Jordan Tyson or a Casey Conception that we'll see if they become the player that Waddle becomes. But on the timeline, you're then not shelling out a ton of money for that number one target in year 2 of a rebuild. You
totally
know,
understand.
Of cost.
I totally understand. I'm just talking about from the standpoint of the quarterback that's been waiting for the opportunity. You give it to him. But then you sort of cut him off at the knees in terms of, you know, the assets that he has available to him, because I don't give a damn who you are. The one thing we know about, you can pick a great quarterback, you pick the greatest quarterback on the planet Earth. The one thing that we know about quarterbacks is that they don't catch the passes that they throw. Somebody else got to do that. And somebody else got to get open in order for you to be able to do it. Yeah. And when you got a guy like Jaylen Waddle and they let go of him after you got, you got Malik Willis, I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, and I don't disagree with the Dolphins. Yeah. I'm just saying that's a hard pill for me to swallow if I'm Malik Willis, because I waited for this opportunity, and it's like, damn, it would have been nice to have Waddle to throw the football to. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,